تلك آيات الكتاب الحكيم هدى ورحمة للمحسنين الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم بالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. ومن الناس من يشتري لهو الحديث ليضل عن سبيل الله بغير علم ويتخذها هزوا أولئك لهم عذاب مهين. وإذا تتلى عليه آياتنا ولى مستكبرا كأن لم يسمعها كأن في أذنيه وقرا فبشره بعذاب أليم. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم جنات النعيم خالدين فيها وعد الله حقا وهو العزيز الحكيم. خلق السماوات بغير عمد ترونها وألقى في الأرض رواسي أن تميد بكم وبث فيها من كل دابة وأنزلنا من السماء ماء فأنبتنا فيها من كل زوج كريم. هذا خلق الله فأروني ماذا خلق الذين من دونه بل الظالمون في ضلال مبين. ولقد آتينا لقمان الحكمة أن اشكر لله ومن يشكر فإنما يشكر لنفسه ومن كفر فإن الله غني حميد. وإذ قال لقمان لابنه وهو يعظه يا بني لا تشرك بالله إن الشرك لظلم عظيم. ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه حملته أمه وهنا على وهن وفصاله في عامين أن اشكر لي ولوالديك إلي المصير. وإن جاهداك على أن تشرك بي ما ليس لك به علم فلا تطعهما وصاحبهم في الدنيا معروفا واتبع سبيل من أناب إليه ثم إلي مرجعكم فأنبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا بني إنها إن تك مثقال حبة من خردل فتكن في صخرة أو في السماوات أو في الأرض يأتي بها الله إن الله لطيف خبير. يا بني أقم الصلاة وأمر بالمعروف وانهى عن المنكر واصبر على ما أصابك إن ذلك من عزم الأمور. ولا تصعر خدك للناس ولا تمشي في الأرض مرحا إن الله لا يحب كل مختال فخور. واقصد في مشيك واغضض من صوتك إن أنكر الأصوات لصوت الحمير. ألم تروا أن الله سخر لكم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وأسبغ عليكم نعمه ظاهرة وباطنة ومن الناس من يجادل في الله بغير علم ولا هدى ولا كتاب منير. وإذا قيل لهم اتبعوا ما أنزل الله قالوا بل نتبع ما وجدنا عليه آباءنا أولو كان الشيطان يدعوهم إلى عذاب السعير. ومن يسلم وجهه إلى الله وهو محسن فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى وإلى الله عاقبة الأمور. ومن كفر فلا يحزنك كفره إلينا مرجعهم فننبئهم بما عملوا إن الله عليم بذات الصدور. نمتعهم قليلا ثم نضطرهم إلى عذاب غليظ. ولئن سألتهم من خلق السماوات والأرض ليقولن الله قل الحمد لله بل أكثرهم لا يعلمون. لله ما في السماوات والأرض إن الله هو الغني الحميد. ولو أن ما في الأرض من شجرة أقلام والبحر يمده من بعده 7 أبحر ما نفدت كلمات الله إن الله عزيز حكيم. ما خلقكم ولا بعثكم إلا كنفس واحدة إن الله سميع بصير. ألم تر أن الله يولج الليل في النهار ويولج النهار في الليل وسخر الشمس والقمر كل يجري إلى أجل مسمى وأن الله بما تعملون خبير. ذلك بأن الله هو الحق وأن ما يدعون من دونه الباطل وأن الله هو العلي الكبير. ألم تر أن الفلك تجري في البحر بنعمة الله ليريكم من آياته إن في ذلك لآية لكل صبار شكور. إن في ذلك لآيات لكل صبار شكور. وإذا غشيهم موج كالظلل دعوا الله مخلصين له الدين فلما نجاهم إلى البر فمنهم مقتصد وما يجحد بآياتنا إلا كل ختار كفور. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم واخشوا يوما لا يجزي والد عن ولده ولا مولود هو جاز عن والده شيئا إن وعد الله حق فلا تغرنكم الحياة الدنيا ولا يغرنكم بالله الغرور. إن الله عنده علم الساعة وينزل الغيث ويعلم ما في الأرحام وما تدري نفس ماذا تكسب غدا وما تدري نفس بأي أرض تموت إن الله عليم خبير. صدق الله العلي العظيم. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بفضل الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. Before Islam, there was no brotherhood that is known, or we would say that could be argued historically, that rose from belief in the oneness of God and the justice of God and the belief in God, and did away with caste and the clannish, if you want to use that term, or tribal identity, or any form of racial or any form of a group that someone could associate with. However, a brotherhood that, regardless of where you came from, it was under the light of the belief in God, other than the Islamic faith. In fact, from the beginning, from the outset of the call to faith, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam had called to Islam, called the people to follow him, and the companions had come towards him, he established a brotherhood between the companions. In fact, he even established an exclusive brotherhood, where he would tell each companion, he'd bring them forth and make a brotherhood between, like basically put them in pairs. And at that point, he had chosen as his brother Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And the brotherhood with Ali ibn Abi Talib between Rasulullah and Imam Ali was important because this showed the bond that they had, and that generally the people that the Prophet put, the companions, that were pretty much of the same making in terms of piety. Rasulullah would choose Ali alayhi salam as his companion. And he did this with the Muhajirin. The Muhajirin are the ones that migrated from Mecca to Medina, so they were called Al-Muhajirin. The Muhajirin that were with the Prophet in Mecca, he made them make a brotherhood with one another. And when they went to Medina and they met with the people in Medina who were called the Ansar, once again the Prophet would get one member of the Muhajirin to become a brother with a member of the Ansar. That way, establishing a brotherhood. But once again, after the Hijrah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam would choose his brother to be Ali, which was unique because he didn't do that with anyone else. Nobody had the same brother in Mecca as they had in Medina. They had to have someone else, except in the case of Rasulullah. So when we're looking for a good brother, a close brother to establish, a close friend, someone to associate with, we find the most important quality is religion. And we'll build upon this as we go along. In fact, a lot of the friendships people establish are from religious pilgrimages. When they go to the Hajj, when they go ziyarah, when they visit the shrine of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, they build close bonds, they meet people. Especially on travel, you really work somebody out. You can tell who's generous. You can tell about, sometimes you find there are those that have altruistic qualities where they are selfless when they're with others. And then they're those, the me first types. The ones that always want the best pillow, the best blanket, they want the best bed. They're always the first in line when there's an open buffet to make sure they get the best piece of chicken or whatever that's there. They're the ones that fight. And then you got the others that wish the best for those around them. So the brotherhood was something very meaningful in Islam from the start. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would signify this with Imam Ali alayhi salam. He would tell him, you are my brother in this world and in the hereafter. And in fact, when he would call for him, he would sometimes, on many occasions, but when we say, it was at times he would refer to him as Akhi Ali. In one narration where he says to Ayman, one of the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he'd tell her, call my brother. And she says, who's your brother? He says, Ali. And then jokingly she says, if he's your brother, he's married to who? Alaykum salam, to Fatima, the daughter of Rasulullah. She says, if your brother, how's he married to your daughter? Just jokingly to show this is how he felt about him. He loved him so dearly. It's very rare to find someone that's good mates with his son-in-law or vice versa. But in this case, this was the case with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. But what we're going to look at tonight, because we're looking at the qualities of a good brother, we take a look at a narration in Nahj al-Balagha for Amir al-Mu'mineen, and this is an explanation of what a good brother is. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, كَانَ لِي فِي مَا مَضَى أَخٌ فِي اللَّهِ. كَانَ لِي, that it so happened there was once upon a time of my past, فِي مَا مَضَى أَخٌ فِي اللَّهِ, I had a brother في الله. A brotherhood, not a brother by blood, but a brother by God. Meaning, in other words, our brotherhood was established through what? Through God. Alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullah. Now, there is opinions. Some of the narrators say that he was talking about the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but this is a very weak interpretation of this. Because in this narration it says وَكَانَ ضَعِيفٌ مُسْتَضْعَفٌ, that Rasulullah wasn't mustadaf. Mustadaf meaning that he had become overcome. And when we say someone's mustadaf, that they've been in a manner not capable of achieving what they want to achieve, because they've been held down by the circumstances in which they lived in. But Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we know during his time he ruled, so he wasn't overcome. So it wasn't Rasulullah. And another interpretation, it said it was Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. But then it talks about his heroics in war. Abu Dhar didn't really have any stories of his heroics in war. So then another opinion said, hold on, it's Al-Miqdad ibn Aswad al-Kindi. And once again, all these were just interpretations. Al-Sharif al-Radi, the one that compiled Nahj al-Balagha, says it's more than likely Imam Ali alayhi salam is giving us an example of a person, of what an akh is fillah. What is a brother that you should have in this brotherhood? The first thing he says, وَكَانَ يُعَظِّمُهُ فِي عَيْنِ صِغَرُ الدُّنْيَا فِي عَيْنِهِ. What made this brother of mine look so great to me is how little he perceived this world. Firstly, when someone has too much awe for the world that they live in, and they have too much regard for the world. Have you noticed when someone dies and they're eulogizing, they say this person loved life. When someone really, in the meaning, loved life, everyone wants to live. In the end of the day, everyone loves to live. But to say I loved life in the sense that I'm clinging to this world, it means I'm in love with what's temporary. I'm in love with what's transient. I'm in love with things that have an expiry date, which doesn't mean I'm someone that is very rational and sound. Could you imagine, like if someone was to lease property and then you lease a home and renovate it? What kind of rational and sound person does something like that? If someone is thinking rationally, they wouldn't act in this manner. So he says that this person that he mentions was someone that sees the world for what it is. He sees how little this world is. In other words, when they're around you, these types of people, when they're around you, they won't desire what you have. They won't have a desire for what you have in any way. Why? Because they're not after this dunya. In other words, you won't cut the grass. You won't, if you're going, you'll put it in our terms. Hamad, one sec. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala. You get my son, he's going outside. Let's bring him here. Hamad, do you want me to carry you over to pick him up? All right. So in other words, if this person, if you notice sometimes when there's two guys and they're going for one woman, they won't fight over because they're not chasing the dunya. You won't have these tragics, you won't have a Shakespearean type story where someone dies because of the dunya. Because of their love, they'll just commit suicide. They top themselves. They say, all right, I can't have this. Sometimes a guy, his wife will leave him and he says, I can't live any longer, and they'll hang themselves. Al-Taban, it's tragic. Why? Because, some people have fallen to this, but you wouldn't have that attachment. So this person wouldn't worry. They wouldn't fight over this. And this type of person, they won't sell you out. They'll stay true to you. You know why? Because the dunya becomes valueless to them. They won't sell you out for anything. They won't cut you. I don't know if you people see when in the workplace, especially if you've seen office politics, where someone's going for that promotion and they'll cut someone. They'll start doing the Chinese whispers about them passing on information. This person, I see them, they bludge all day, they don't do their job properly just so they can get the promotion. A person doesn't regard this world so highly won't do things like that. They won't undercut others. They won't put down, alaikum salam, they won't put down other people to make a gain. The other thing is, if someone has these qualities, they want what's best for you. They don't want to hurt you. If you have a friend that doesn't see the dunya so well, in so grand, that means they look towards the akhirah. And part of the qualities of the hereafter is to look after you as a friend, and not to do what's worst for you. They won't compete with you in everything. You see those friends that was competing with each other? He buys his wife something, then the other guy wants to buy her something better. He goes to his holidays to somewhere nice, the other one wants to go somewhere better. They even start comparing rings. Have you, I don't know if you've ever seen it in marriages when they're getting their wives' rings and they get these inflated receipts. A lot of people do this. They'll go purchase the ring for $3,000 and they'll get a receipt for $10,000. I say, that's the ring that, and sometimes, people get even big just to compete, to show where I am. I don't want friends around me that I need to compete with. That they need to show me all these things, and their love for this world can affect the way that I think. Then he says, وَكَانَ خَارِجًا مِنْ سُلْطَانِ بَطْنِهِ. That this person was kharij an sultan batni. That this person wasn't subservient to his belly. Meaning what? You see these people that just to try some exotic food or try something that they want. Today, look, honestly, this point is a bit Dickensian because we don't live at a time where, you're not going to see Oliver Twist where people are trying to get something to eat. It's pretty much, people can eat anything these days. It's got so fancy these days. One guy goes, I could get you Wagyu lamb. The people don't know what to do. I'm just waiting for someone to say, listen, I got Wagyu lobster. I don't know what they're going to come up with next, because you can eat anything today. But what I want to look at is where people go. People go to the worst places, the worst environments, some unsavory and suspicious restaurants just to try these types of things. So sometimes I'm with a friend, he wants to take me to these wrong places. That because he wants to try something special in this manner. So generally, these types of people also have little regard for what's permissible and what's suspicious. They might feed you something that has something that's haram, forbidden to eat, because they don't really care about what they feed you. If you ask someone, for example, with the concept, one of the things that's argued a lot is gelatin. We tell people, some people will eat it, they don't care, and they say, why? They say, because I've read the fatwa of Sayyid Sistani, and it says that if the gelatin's unknown, if it came from an animal source or a vegetable source, then you don't have to inquire. But I just want to ask a question, you may answer. Has anyone ever purchased gelatin that was from a vegetable source? Why not? Because it's not called gelatin. Gelatin is from an animal source. It's got another name. But because someone would have put the question to Sayyid Sistani, if the gelatin's from a vegetable animal. Sayyid Sistani is not a chemist. He's not someone that's got a science degree. Even when he was asked about politics in Iraq, what did he say? He said, I am someone that is an expert in Islamic jurisprudence. Meaning I'm an expert in Islamic law. It's like going to your GP and asking him to build a plan for a town centre or something. That's pretty much what you're asking. Someone that's an expert in a field to give you advice about a field that he's not an expert in. So rather than be thorough when it comes to these things, they're not. So you have a friend like that, they'll feed you anything. They don't care where they purchased it from. They'll say, inshallah, it's halal. Like that guy that went early in the morning to pray in the mosque. He entered the masjid and he saw a dog, but it was a bit dark and it was raining outside. He saw the dog had entered the mosque and was sitting in the mosque. So he went in, closed his eyes, picked up the dog and said, inshallah, it's a gazelle. Took it outside and threw the dog outside. So the place has become tahir again. You can't have that way of dealing. You can't have that way of acting when it comes to these things. The other thing he says when it comes to this, فَلَا يَشْتَهِي مَا لَا يَجِدُ وَلَا يُكْثِرُ إِذَا وَجَدْ. In other words, they can go without. If I don't find what I want that's permissible, I'll go without. Sometimes you might go on a trip somewhere. For example, if you go to Japan, I'm not hitting on the Wagyu again. But if you say you go to Japan, Japan is a country that's predominantly what? Shinto Buddhist. A Shinto Buddhist to find a place that actually sells, and now probably you will find, because of the world's pretty much become so interconnected with everything, you would find halal outlets. But if you won't go there, you can go without. You can have some sushi. You can go without eating red meat or chicken. Alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So anyway, and then he says, وَلَا يُكْثِرْ إِذَا وَجَدْ. If they find, they don't become yukthir. They don't say, all right, I found, let me get as much as I can. A lot of people, they did this during the beginning of the COVID pandemic. Yes, pandemic, yeah. I was trying to work out, it's an epidemic, it's a pandemic. Yeah, they did it at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. What did they do? They went into the shops, up till today I still haven't worked out the toilet paper thing. And I don't think I'd ever work out what's going on there. But the people that started stockpiling, they wanted to buy as many things as they wanted. And they tell you, just keep. What about other people that want to use these things? Who cares about everybody else? As long as I have. As long as I've stockpiled and I'm ready. The funny thing, I mentioned this before, but when you're stockpiling, and this isn't my words, I heard this from another person. He said basically when you're stockpiling for somebody else. Because if there is, there's a comedian, but he said if there is a zombie apocalypse, he says in survival of the strongest, you're just stockpiled for the strongest person to come and take them from you. It's pretty much just what you've done. So in other words, they're not excessive when it comes to collecting. I'm not wasteful. I don't throw food. Because we're at a time, listen, we're at a time where food's plenty. It's plentiful here. In most places in the world it was. When we hear the word famine, we really can't digest this mentally. We can't sit there and understand what the word famine is. Really, you can't. If you think about it, especially you're living in Australia, I think we're the second most sheep in the world after China. I think we got second most sheep. It's not New Zealand, I know what you're trying to think, but it's not the Kiwis. In England it's different, they don't have the Kiwi joke. In England they actually call them the Welsh. They say the same joke about the Welsh. But listen, when it comes to the sheep, we have the second most sheep in the world. We aren't short in any way whatsoever, so we can never fathom the idea of what a famine is. But we have to be, all right, we're at a time where we have excess, we can't be wasteful. So I need to find someone that has this idea and thought, because they're not people that waste. They're not excessive. Because these people that are excessive, they're excessive with everything that they use. They throw caution at the wind when it comes to using stuff like this. Then he says, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, وَكَانَ أَكْثَرَ دَهْرِهِ صَامِتًا. The majority of this person's life, he is silent. Some people are silent because they're in the remembrance of Allah. They're saying Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, dhikrullah. Some people are silent because they don't have anything purposeful or beneficial to say. So they don't say it. The saying that they say it's better to be considered a fool and keep your mouth closed than open your mouth and remove all doubt. Sometimes it's better not to say anything. Sometimes when you give your opinion, you've thrown your opinion you put it out there and everyone says, all right, let's see where this is going to go. You've said something, just sit aside and remain silent. They only speak when? To advise people of something they know. Not just, the Homer Simpson thing where he says, I gave the man directions because he wanted to be friendly. He said, I gave the man directions even though I didn't know the way. To give someone directions, why did you even give them directions? You didn't know the way. Some people, they advise you on things they know nothing about. They have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, but they'll give you advice. So I give advice, I'll open my mouth if it comes to prohibiting evil, to encouraging good, to give someone an exhortation, a maw'idha. To admonish someone on something. Something beneficial, not just for the sake of talking. Because then the Imam says, فَإِنْ قَالَ بَذَّ الْقَائِلِينَ وَنَقَعَ غَلِيلَ السَّائِلِينَ. That when this person, this friend you're looking for, when they speak, بَذَّ الْقَائِلِينَ. Now you think about this. He silences everyone. Why? Because they are engrossed in his discussion. When he talks, people say, this is of benefit. I want to listen to this. And not only that, you are not only engrossed in the discussion, but then you become what? The response that they give you fulfills you. It's the response you are asking for. It's not gibberish. They're not going on a rant. It's not one of those people that when they open their mouth, you can't wait for them to be silent. Oh, here he goes again. That they're giving you something that is of benefit and something that will be filling. Otherwise, it's not worth saying. They won't say it, not just for the sake of talking. In fact, this person, you would say, quenches the thirst of the listener. And this is where then the Imam says, وَكَانَ ضَعِيفًا مُسْتَضْعَفًا. وَكَانَ ضَعِيف مُسْتَضْعَف. What does ضَعِيف مُسْتَضْعَف? ضعيف means that when you see this person, they don't look tough. They look soft. They're not like someone that you think, I can take this guy. Why? Because the believer can't be imposing. If he's walking in the street, people should feel safe around him. Not those, those people that walk and they look down upon others as they're walking past. Some areas, we were once in an area, my brother and I, a long time ago, and we were going to cross it. I'm not going to say the area, in a region. And I went to press the button so we can cross. My brother goes, don't cross at the lights. I said, why? He said, we got to jaywalk in this area or we'll get beaten up. There's some of these areas where you go there, that if you are in these kind of regions, that the people there, they're always looking at people. They're giving them that look. And they walk staunch like they got two basketballs under their arms. You know what I mean? You ever seen those guys that got really small, 14-inch biceps, but they walk around like they're Arnold Schwarzenegger after winning Mr. Olympia? You have these types of people. But the mu'min's da'if mustad'af. He appears soft. And they appear that they're not fearsome. They appear that they are not someone they are someone that you can overcome. Because that's how they're supposed to be around people. But then it says, فَإِنْ جَاءَ الْجِدُّ. فَإِنْ جَاءَ الْجِدُّ. When it comes to the battle, when it comes to war, he says, فَهُوَ لَيْثُ غَابٍ وَسِلُّ وَادٍ. When it comes to battle, he is like a lion in the forest or in the jungle, and he is like a serpent in the valley. That's when you see what they're made of. That's when you see their metal, what they've got. One good example is Malik al-Ashtar. Malik al-Ashtar was the general for Imam Ali alayhi salam's army. Malik al-Ashtar, that Imam Ali alayhi salam says about him in the battle, especially when it came to war, he said, كَانَ لِي مِثْلُ مَا كُنْتُ لِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ. He says, he was to me in the army like I was to the messenger of God. So remember Imam Ali alayhi salam, his prowess and his ability in the battles of Badr, in Uhud, in Khandaq, in Hunayn, in Khaybar. Malik was like that for me. In fact, he was known, and when we're talking generals, we're not talking about the generals of today that sit behind the desk. When you're talking about general back then, the general led the army. The general would turn up to the battlefield. In fact, The general would usually, in those armies, he would have the most kills. You know? So if you were playing COD with this guy, he was the number one. He was the one with the Asian name. You know, the one that kills everybody. Absolutely no chance. He's the one that moves along and defeats everyone. This general was the one with the ability. Yet Malik al-Ashtar, in this hadith, it says he was walking in the street. And because he was an elderly man, he's not someone that you would see walking, and he doesn't have that staunch walk or look. Someone threw from the home, they threw, I think either they threw water on him or they threw waste on him. They threw something on him that was like an insult. So Malik al-Ashtar, the person threw it, I think, out of the door, out of a window, I don't know what it was, but he threw it on top of him. Malik al-Ashtar continued walking. You know, these days someone's driving, someone flips them off and they want to burn their car. You know, they want to get out of the car and just, wreak havoc. So he keeps walking. And when the man comes outside, people said, "Do you know who you just threw waste on?" And he says, "Who?" They say, "You threw waste on Malik al-Ashtar, the general of Ali ibn Abi Talib's army." So this man began to shake. This man's a general of an army. And not general, we're not talking, like I said, when you think, I know a lot of times you think general, you think of the pencil neck that sits behind a desk. Because it's not like, you don't, when we sit there and we think general, you don't have that. The thing, the general was the warrior. He was the number one warrior of the army. Once again, I have to reiterate that. So he went looking for him, asked the people, they said he's in the masjid. So he went towards the masjid as Malik al-Ashtar was coming out. And he said, "Please forgive me, I'm the one that did this and that to you." And Malik al-Ashtar said, "I wasn't going towards the masjid, I was going elsewhere. I only came here to pray 2 rak'at to ask Allah to forgive you for what you did. That's why I came here. That's my reason." I'm talking about myself, not you all. Where are we going to be like this? This is a type of person you need to associate with. Because these types of people, when you're out with them, say there's a fight, they're the first person that says, he gets to get in the car and go home. They're not the ones that says, "Let's get down, let's do this tonight. Let's get into a fight." They're the people that get you out of fights. They're the people that get you out of problems. They're the people that steer you away from problems. They only fight when they're forced. Their hands being forced, they have to fight, they'll defend, and this is when you want them on your side, because they'll shed their blood to protect you when their back's to the wall. As opposed to the second Khalif. The second Khalif who never killed a person in a battle. But then when a woman came past, she miscarried when she saw him, from the fear of his presence. That's the opposite of these characteristics that we mentioned in Malik al-Ashtar. Then he says, وَكَانَ لَا يَلُومُ أَحَدًا على ما يجد العذر في مثله حتى يسمع اعتذاره. That this is something we are all guilty of. Blaming people before we hear their excuse. I'll give you something we all do. The news comes on and they'll say, these reporters who, they're sensationalism, they want to give you a good story. Even them, they're forced to write the alleged person allegedly did this. They can't even say that the person actually did this. Yet someone reads an article and they'll say, for example, that this person was seen somewhere, they go, "Yep, he's a killer," or "Yep, he's a rapist," or "Yep, he's a thief." Automatically we go with this. But what about also, even worse, when it's someone you know? Someone you've known your whole life. I want to hear what they've got to say. Even if you remember the one of the most famous lines in the early 1900s, with the baseball team where they sold out. What was their name? The baseball team that sold out. I can't remember. Do you remember their name? Baseball team back in the 1910s, I think, or 20s. They sold out the season, and they were all banned for life. And the little kid who supported this team was a famous saying. I don't know if he actually said it or not, but they use it always in movies as a pop culture reference, where he said, "Say it ain't so, Joe." You've ever heard that? When they said, "Say it ain't so." He's standing outside the courtroom. Why? Because even the kid looked up to this sports star, say you didn't do it. You didn't do this. And apparently he turned around and said, "No, it's true that we did do it." Apparently, I don't know if that's true. But the thing is, even this little child was giving him the opportunity to give what? His excuse. Yet people don't even give an opportunity for others to give a reason for what they did wrong. Automatically will make the excuse. Yep, that's why he did it, because he hates me. That was his intention. That was her intention. This is the way we start thinking. The Imam says this person does not, till he hears the excuse of this person. In fact, some people come to give you the excuse. Some people come to give you the excuse. And when they come to give you the excuse, you won't even hear them out. Gold prices must have dropped. Yeah, some people give you the excuse, so I'm giving them a good excuse. Some people give you the excuse. They give you the reason for why they did something, and you won't hear him out. That's what he's saying. In fact, we have a hadith that if someone's even telling you something and you know they're lying with the excuse, just accept it, because they're too embarrassed. Don't put it on them. Don't force them into a corner. That's what makes you a good friend. A good friend listens. I always tell people, your friend will make an excuse for you. But the one that isn't your friend won't believe an excuse even if you give him one. Your friend will always make an excuse for you. They always bat for you. They're always behind your back. They're always there for you. You ever heard that joke? Yeah, I'm probably going to get killed by some guys here. That they go, it's a joke, just in case there's some repercussions with this later. The one that they say, if a guy's wife calls to find out where he was the night before, she'll call 10 of his mates, and 9 will say that he was with them last night, and 3 will say he's still sleeping there. They'd always bat for him. They're always there for him. They got his back. A good friend. It's a joke, but they got their back there. I'm not encouraging anyone to lie. I'm just saying it's a joke. Remember, this is all just to lighten up the mood. But this is the way it is. A friend is always there for you. They never leave you alone. They will make that excuse for you. And a real brother will create an excuse for you, not once, not twice, but every single time they will make an excuse for you. And then, in another hadith, just speaking on this point, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says, "Inna akhaka haqqan man ghafara zallatak." Your true brother, your real brother, is the one that forgives your lapses. When you have a lapse, they overlook it. They forgive it. One thing in a marital relationship, and this is off topic, but in a marital one of the biggest problems is people are very persnickety when it comes to their spouse. Every lapse they say, "Yep, you did that again." They don't overlook things. They don't just let everything flow. Keep moving forward. When there's something worthwhile to argue over that point. Don't argue over everything. Don't argue over everything that you see. It says, "Inna akhaka haqqan man ghafara zallatak wa sadda khallatak." Sadda khallatak means they fulfill your need. They don't wait for someone else to do it. You see those brothers, there are brothers in our community, honestly, that you could tell him, "Listen, I'm moving house on Sunday." You just mention it, they're at your house to help you. You don't need to ask them, "Can you come and help me?" They turn up. Your brothers, when you mention stuff, they're there for you. They're there to help you out. They're the first ones there. وَقَبِلَ عُذْرَكَ. Your brother accepts your excuse. وَسَتَرَ عَوْرَتَكَ. He hides your vices. Hides doesn't mean he hides them. Doesn't mean that he makes you look like a good bloke in front of people. No. If you do something wrong, he's not the first one to announce it. You know those ministers of doom and gloom, they have to always let you know, the ones that guess who got divorced, or guess whose baby died, or guess, like I always tell people, rats spread disease, bees spread love. They're the ones that move, when they actually spread love, from flower to flower, all the pollination takes place with the bees. But you look at the rats, they spread disease. So when you're one of those people that always wants to tell people the latest gossip, what's been going on, think about yourself. You're scurrying across the deck of a ship or something, be someone that is like a rainbow, someone that gives, goodness wherever you see it. Makes people happy when they see, when you look up your child, you see that rainbow across the sky, you get happy. Be someone like that gives good news wherever they go. And then it says, وَنَفَى وَجَلَكَ. They remove your fears. When you come in, you tell someone a problem, they go, basita, small, take it easy, we can fix this. And in their head, they might be thinking, oh my God, this guy's finished. But they just let you have that sense of relaxation, relief. وَحَقَّقَ أَمَلَكَ. This is important, that this friend lives up to your expectation. Sometimes you expect something from someone and they do the exact opposite. I never expected that from you. But sometimes you have a friend that turns around and says, you're a real brother. You do the right thing there. So anyway, in the end, the Imam mentions about these people. He says, فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِهَذِهِ الْخَلَائِقِ فَأَلْزِمُوهَا وَتَنَافَسُوا فِيهَا. If he says, these are the types of people you need. فَأَلْزِمُوهَا. Hold tightly onto these people. وَتَنَافَسُوا فِيهَا. Be around these people. Live with these people. Be around these types of people. They're the brothers that you should be. But then he says, فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِيعُوهَا فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ أَخْذَ الْقَلِيلِ خَيْرٌ مِّن تَرْكِ الْكَثِيرِ. You can't find all this. Take at least someone with some of these qualities. Better than having nothing. Don't be one of those people, those people that are very picky in everything. If they want to buy a car, they're picky. So they keep catching the train because they haven't found the right car. They're single and they're 40 years old. They don't get married because they haven't found the right spouse. With everything, they want everything to be perfect. Newsflash, you're not perfect. That's the first thing you need to know. You need to look at yourself for a second. That's one of the biggest problems people have. Not looking at themselves in this case. So I need to find someone that has some of these qualities. Because these types of brothers, when you find them, do not ever lose them. And I'll leave you off with one last point. This last point is an Yahya ibn Zakaria, in biblical terms, John the Baptist, and Isa ibn Maryam, in biblical terms, Jesus, son of Mary. It says, alayhim as-salam, it says because they were so close, they had a brotherhood, that they were so close with each other, that obviously Yahya ibn Zakaria was killed, and he was buried, that Isa ibn Maryam, alayhi salam, would sit at his grave and weep. He would weep so much, then he asked Allah Azza wa Jal to be allowed to bring him back to life. So he brought him back to life. When he brought him back to life, Yahya ibn Zakaria said, why did you bring me back to life? He said, because I miss you. And this world's nothing without you. I can't live with this world without you. And then he says, the warmth of the death had just cooled down. Do not make me go through this again. Let me be. So he let him go. The Imam here shows you this longing that when you have such a dear brother, the world is valueless when they're gone. Has no value when someone is like that. We're not talking about someone that, sometimes you hear a tragedy of someone being killed, you get upset. But imagine you know this person, you know them, haqq al-ma'rifah. They are righteous, good people, every quality is within them. The things that you look for in a brother, that's why when you have a brother like this, never ever lose them. And this is the importance of having this good brotherhood. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to place mercy within our hearts for one another. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to place mercy within our hearts to forgive each other's transgressions and oppressions to one another. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal not to take us from this world until He is pleased with us. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal most importantly to hasten the reappearance of our Master Al-Hujjat ibn Al-Hasan Al-Mehdi, arwahuna fidah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma kun li waliyika al-Hujjat ibn Al-Hasan صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل اللهم على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.